Second episode begins immediately after Joe's abduction, showing what happened after Russian operatives captured her. After taking her from the street, the agents bring her to a secure location where they begin searching for a tracking device. The Russians are convinced that Joe, like every intelligence officer, must have a tracker hidden somewhere on her body. Joe denies having one, but they refuse to believe her. The agents remind her that even Yurimov had a tracker implanted in his body, which Cody removed before extracting him from the bunker. After being pressured, Joe finally reveals the location of her own tracker. It is hidden inside her left foot, near her big toe. The Russians remove the device and immediately move Joe to another safe location, preventing the CIA from tracing her movements. When Joe's team arrives at the abandoned location, they find only the tracker that the Russians deliberately left behind. The discovery confirms that Joe has been taken, and that the enemy has already planned several steps ahead. Kaitlyn realizes that recovering Joe will be extremely difficult, because the Russians have hidden her somewhere unknown. With Joe's life and the agency's secrets at risk, Kaitlyn contacts Byron and requests additional support from Camp Peary. She explains that they cannot afford to lose time because Joe is carrying sensitive information. If the Russians manage to break her during interrogation, it could expose operations, agents, and intelligence networks. Byron understands the seriousness of the situation and promises to arrange support from Camp Peary within 6 hours. Until then, Kaitlyn orders Joe's existing HRT and Quick Reaction Force teams to continue searching every possible lead and locate her before it is too late. Meanwhile, Neal notices Joe's abandoned vehicle surrounded by police cars while driving his children to school. Immediately fearing something has happened to his wife, he leaves the area and goes to find answers. When he reaches Kaitlyn, he demands to know what happened. Kaitlyn assures Neal that Joe is alive and that the CIA is doing everything possible to bring her home. However, she admits that they currently do not know where the Russians have taken her or what they want from her. She tells Neal to leave the area and keep the situation away from their children until they know more. The episode then returns to the events following the attack outside Joe's house. After Joe shot the two men pretending to be state police officers, she immediately contacted CIA headquarters and reported that she had been exposed. Kaitlyn and Joe's team arrive at the house disguised as FBI agents to investigate the attack and control the situation. Kyle informs Kaitlyn that the two attackers had Romanian passports, but intelligence checks reveal that they were actually Belarusian nationals. This suggests that they may have connections to Russian intelligence services. The team begins investigating why Russia sent these men after Joe. The evidence suggests that the attackers may not have been sent only to eliminate Joe. Instead, they may have been trying to identify her and confirm whether she was connected to Yurimov's disappearance. Russia knew their agent had vanished, but did not yet have complete information about who was responsible. Randy explains that the attackers may have been trying to gather information about Joe's identity and her connection to the CIA. Their presence at Joe's home allowed them to observe everyone who arrived after the shooting and collect information about her team. The attack becomes even more concerning when Joe's team discovers that additional Russian operatives were nearby. Tucker and Two Cups search the area, believing that the attackers may have had backup watching from a distance. Their suspicions prove correct when Tucker spots a person positioned on a rooftop, monitoring the activity around Joe's house. The team discovers that the rooftop observer was not alone. Another operative was nearby protecting him, while a third person waited as a driver. When the driver attempts to pull out a weapon, Randy shoots him before he can attack. The CIA manages to capture two Russian-linked operatives and sends them for interrogation. However, the team is unsure how much information they will provide because they may only be contract agents who do not know the full details of the operation. The discovery confirms one important fact. Joe was being watched before her kidnapping. Kaitlyn realizes that Joe and her family are no longer safe at home, so she arranges for them to be moved to a secure location. Joe is then taken to CIA headquarters for an emergency debriefing about the attack and her abduction. At the same time, Byron attends a dinner event where he notices Maxim, a Russian ambassador, sitting with other officials. Angry that Russian operatives attacked an American agent on US soil, Byron approaches him and confronts him directly. Maxim makes it clear that Russia knows the United States was involved in Yurimov's disappearance. He warns Byron that the CIA crossed the line by taking their agent. However, Byron refuses to confirm whether Yurimov is actually in American custody. Instead, Byron focuses on the consequences of Russia's actions. He tells Maxim that their operation has already cost them several men and gives America leverage against them. Byron warns that the United States can use the incident to take action against Russian-linked personnel inside the country. Maxim understands that Byron has gained an advantage and asks what he wants. He is clearly referring to Yurimov and suggests a possible prisoner exchange involving Americans held overseas. However, Byron refuses to negotiate. He tells Maxim that the purpose of the meeting was not to make a deal, but to send a warning. Russia made a serious mistake by targeting an American officer on US soil, and they would have to face the consequences of that decision. After Byron's confrontation with the Russian ambassador, the CIA continues trying to understand how Russia discovered Joe's identity and found her location. Before the official debriefing begins, Secretary of State Mullins speaks with Joe and tells her that the incident she survived will shape her future. He explains that one day she may move into a leadership role, and the experiences she gained in the field will help her make better decisions. Joe then joins the debriefing, where the team discusses the possible source of the security breach. Everyone has a different explanation for how Russia connected Joe to Yurimov's disappearance. Kaitlyn believes the leak may have come from someone inside Ukraine. She suspects that a person connected to the operation could have revealed Joe's identity, allowing Russia to begin investigating her. Once they had her name and information, they could send agents to confirm her involvement. Byron considers other possibilities. He believes Russian contacts at the Ukrainian airport may have identified Joe during the extraction operation. Another possibility is that someone within the Ukrainian military shared information about the mission. However, Joe and Byron agree that the extraction itself was unlikely where she was exposed, because Joe's identity was protected throughout the operation. Joe has her own suspicion about what happened. She cannot ignore the timing of the attack, which happened shortly after they received information about Yurimov from Alexandra, the Ukrainian source who helped them locate him. Joe believes Alexandra may not have been completely honest with them. She questions why someone would provide such valuable information without expecting anything in return. Because of these doubts, Byron decides that Alexandra needs to be brought to Langley for questioning. Kyle and two members of Joe's team are sent to bring Alexandra in so they can determine whether she played a role in exposing the operation. The team also discusses what will happen to Yurimov, who is being held by the CIA after his capturing Ukraine. Byron explains that Yurimov is currently secured at a CIA facility in Jordan and will eventually be transferred to Guantanamo Bay. The final decision about Yurimov's fate will belong to the president. He could remain imprisoned indefinitely, with his existence kept secret, or he could face trial for his crimes, including actions against American personnel in Ukraine. Until a decision is made, Yurimov will remain in custody and continue to be questioned for any intelligence he can provide. His knowledge makes him extremely valuable, which is why Russia is desperate to recover him. Back at the secure location, Joe finally reunites with her family. Her daughters, Kate and Charlie, are already asleep, but Neal is waiting for her. When Joe sees her husband, she breaks down emotionally. She apologizes for bringing the dangers of her work into their home and feels responsible for putting her family at risk. The attack has made her realize how close she came to losing everything. Joe struggles with the fact that her children experienced the violence outside their house. Although they did not see the shooting, they heard the gunfire and knew something terrible had happened. Neal comforts her, but it is clear that the situation has deeply affected their family. Joe has always understood the risks of her job, but now those risks have directly reached the people she loves most. The incident forces Joe to question how she can continue balancing her responsibilities as an intelligence officer and as a mother. The possibility of leaving field operations and moving into a safer role becomes more realistic, but the threat against her has already changed everything. Russia now knows who Joe is, and even stepping away from active missions may not remove the danger. She has become a target, and the conflict between the CIA and Russia is far from over. Meanwhile, Joe returns to her family, but the larger battle continues. The Russians attempted to pressure the United States by targeting one of its officers, while the CIA prepares to respond and uncover the truth behind the attack.